I used to taste your daddy who doesn't love a good story, especially ones which involve unbelievable mythological creatures that you wouldn't remotely think are real. But, as history has proven, there is a basis for which these creatures were brought up. Today we're going to be looking at 10 mythical creatures that actually existed. Number 1 itself will make you question whether Middle-earth was real or not, so stay tuned for that one. With all that said and done, let's begin, shall we? Number 10. The dire wolf. It's a freak, it's a dire wolf. Dire wolves became lively popular when Game of Thrones hit the mainstream. These large wolves are a constant companion of the Starks in the show and are shown to be large, intelligent, and protective. They are not, however, just merely a figment of George R.R. Martin's imagination. They are, in fact, based on real animals. Dire wolves lived during the Pleistocene, between 250,000 to roughly 10,000 years ago. Unfortunately, real dire wolves were not really the size of ponies. They were larger than modern wolves, though, and could weigh as much as 200 pounds, almost twice what a very large modern wolf might weigh. Their skulls are much larger compared to today's modern wolves. Ironically, though, their brains are much smaller. However, if they had bigger brains, we probably wouldn't have had amazing fossils of them. Thousands of dire wolf fossils have been found in the La Brea tar pits. Scientists believe that they were trapped there when they started feeding on the carcasses of other animals trapped in the tar. Number 9. The unicorn. Perhaps the earliest account of unicorns is by well-known Greek historian Sadish. Yes, we described a large animal with a horn on its forehead in India. It's quite possible that he saw a rhino from a distance and thought it was a horse with a horn on its head. But fossils unearthed in Siberia may have proven the existence of this mythical creature called the Siberian unicorn. It was 1.8 meters tall, over 4 meters long, and weighed more than 4 tons. It was covered in a shaggy coat, and earned its nickname from the huge horn that grew out of its forehead. Yes, it doesn't exactly resemble the classic unicorn of lore, but so far, this is the closest that we can get to a real one. They were believed to have died out 350,000 years ago, but the discovery of a fossil in Kazakhstan changed all that. Carbon dating tests revealed the fossil to be only 29,000 years old. This means that the animal roamed the Earth 321,000 years longer than previously thought. Number 8. The Komodo dragon. Believe it or not, the Komodo dragon was considered a mythical creature all the way up to 1910 when it was first discovered. Prior to that, rumors were spreading that 8-foot-long, 100-pound prehistoric lizards were living on a remote Indonesian island. Wanting to prove or disprove the existence of these creatures himself, Dutch colonial officer Lieutenant Stein von Hans Broek put together an expedition to Komodo Island. He was able to catch and kill a 6-foot specimen, and he sent the carcass as proof to the Zoological Museum and Botanical Garden at Bogor, Java. Seemingly not satisfied with the discovery, American explorer W. Douglas Burton decided to put together an expedition himself, making up his mind to catch live specimens. In the end, the expedition was able to pile several dead and 2 live Komodo dragons onto their steamer, and then return to New York City, giving scientists plenty to study and visitors of the Bronx Zoo plenty to see. So, the bunyip is kind of like Australia's version of the Loch Ness Monster, since it's supposed to live in the water and, well, nobody's ever managed to photograph it, even though, apparently, hundreds of people claim to have seen it. However, the legend might actually have some rational origins. The bunyip is an Aboriginal legend, and according to Australian history, the name means like a devil or a spirit. The creature is usually described as looking like a cross between a crocodile and a horse. Though, accounts do differ. Bunyips are said to stalk and kill human beings, and supposedly they make this super eerie sound, kind of like a hollow boom, which honestly seems pretty terrifying if you've never been around shotguns or farm equipment. Most scientists think the bunyip legend probably comes from an extinct rhino-sized marsupial called the Diprotodon. Remains of this animal were first found in the region back in 1839. It's, unlikely that there are any surviving populations of Diprotodon in Australia, but they only died out about 20,000 to 40,000 years ago, which was long after the Aboriginal people arrived. This suggests the legends might actually come from real-life encounters between humans and these, amazing creatures. The gorilla. It's honestly hard to imagine a world without gorillas, at least by today's standards. But, back then, tales of large, hairy, savage man-beasts with bad tempers living in the wilds of some faraway place just seemed way too good to be true. Their legend actually persevered all the way until 1847, when physician and naturalist Thomas Savage managed to get his hands on gorilla bones, including a skull, in Liberia. Before anyone found those bones though, the first recorded sighting of a gorilla was made by the explorer Hanno in the 5th century BC. Another explorer, Andrew Patel, also told stories about human-like monsters visiting his campfire every morning after the humans had left for the day. But, he also pointed out that these monsters weren't smart enough to put more wood on the campfire, so, well, his credibility kind of went up in flames. Live gorillas went unseen and untouched for a whole decade after Savage's discovery, until explorer Paul du Chaillu hunted live gorillas and sent specimens back to the many societies who were funding his expeditions. And get this, the subspecies mountain gorillas unbelievably remained a mythological creature for more than half a century more, only being discovered in 1902 by German Captain Robert von Berenger. Number 5. The basilisk. So, the basilisk is a mythical creature born from a toad or serpent's egg incubated under a cockerel. The terrible offspring that hatches from this egg is, like, half bird, half snake, and just all evil. It's one of the deadliest creatures to menace the mythological world, and it's extremely hostile towards humans. You might be familiar with this monster from the Harry Potter book and movie, The Chamber of Secrets, but the monster shown there is kind of incomplete, and only appears as a giant serpent. The basilisk is sometimes described as a giant snake, without the cockerel's head or wings. Still, its movement is really unlike other snakes. Rather than slithering with its stomach on the ground, it curls forward, with the front half of its body towering above the earth. The monster's most famous weapon is its dreaded gaze. The potency of its gaze is discussed in all the myths that talk about them across several different cultures. Sometimes, they're also known to breathe out fire. Does the description vaguely remind you of something? Well, many experts actually believe that the basilisk is none other than a cobra, from its size to the way it stands erect when preparing to strike. Even the cobra's hood could be mistaken for wings. And the fire-breathing part? We all know that certain species of cobras have to spit out venom, and this venom does cause a burning sensation. So, there we go. The basilisk may be a misunderstood cobra, or maybe it's another undiscovered creature. Who knows? Platypus. Can you imagine the rest of the world thinking that you're a hoax, but you know for a fact that you're 100% real? If you don't, well, consider yourself lucky. The duck-billed platypus, however, had to spend most of its existence as mythological hearsay, or worse, a complete fabrication. First discovered in the 18th century, it was considered by many to be a ridiculous hoax, and not without reason. This was an age when naturalists were creating all sorts of strange creatures, with the help of taxidermy and, creative imagination. It was first described by English zoologist George Shaw, who wrote that it resembled, and I quote, the beak of a duck engrafted on the head of a quadruped. Head all the fakery aside, the platypus is remarkable for many reasons, not just its peculiar appearance. Naturalists couldn't even determine whether the creature was a mammal. Did it lay eggs or give birth to live babies? It actually took another 100 years for scientists to discover the answer to that. As it turned out, the platypus is one of the very few mammal species to lay eggs, and it's also poisonous. Fun! In Greek mythology, the Cyclops were giant creatures that were unmistakable in their appearance, sporting a single eye in the center of each of their heads. They were also known for their barbarity, afraid of neither men nor gods. The most famous Cyclops was Polyphemus, who attacked Odysseus in a cave and ate half of his men. Odysseus blinded the Cyclops' eye, running a wooden stake through his single eye, and Odysseus and his men escaped by tying themselves to the undersides of sheep. This sounds very implausible though, considering sheep strong enough to carry the weight of a full-grown man. But, the existence of Cyclops, there might be some truth to that, actually. For many years, there appeared to be solid proof that these one-eyed monsters really existed. Quite a few huge skulls were found which appeared to have a single eye socket in the middle of their forehead. It turns out that the skulls belonged to dwarf elephants. The eye socket was the central nasal cavity and the opening for the elephant's trunk. Many dwarf elephants have been found in Cyprus, especially in caves where the Cyclops were supposed to have lived.